Have you ever had an experience so bizarre you couldn't believe it was real? Now imagine if that experience involved aliens, evidence left behind, and a life forever changed. Today we unravel a story that's not just about lights in the sky. It's about a man named Peter Khoury and an encounter that transcends understanding. An encounter that started in the scenic landscapes of Lebanon and found its eerie climax in the heart of Australia. Prepare to question everything you thought you knew about extraterrestrial encounters as we dive in to the baffling world of Peter Khoury. Now, this isn't your usual "I saw a light in the sky" story. This is intricate, detailed, and haunting, marking its beginnings all the way back to the 1970s, during Peter's childhood in Lebanon, a country known for its beautiful landscapes, historic ruins, and vibrant culture. But for Peter, this would be the start of repeated encounters, beginning when he was just 22 days old. Late that night, as his mother fed him at home, she spotted what would be described as an alien figure at the window. Its appearance, milky white with shoulder-length hair, watching in silence. Yet she felt no fear, only calm, before falling into a deep sleep, left only with a vivid memory of this strange encounter. Peter's early childhood would be marked by a sense of other encounters, which would be confusing for any child developing their sense of the world during those early years. Now let's fast forward to 1988. Peter, now emigrated with his family to Australia, thinks he's left all those strange days behind. But as we know from the countless tales from around the world, these experiences seem to follow the individual, not the location. So he's living with his parents in the outer suburbs of Sydney, enjoying some quality time watching TV with his dad in the living room. It's a quiet evening, perhaps a bit of news, maybe a show, or a classic 1980s movie. But his brother, having occupied Peter's room for a nap, pops in the room. He asked Peter if he could shift the TV party to his bedroom. Simple enough. Upon entering his room, as Peter lay down getting ready for some relaxed TV time, it all changed. A sudden and unexpected grip on his ankle, whether by a hand or some device he couldn't discern. An electronic sensation shot up his leg, paralysing him. Panic surged through him. That terrifying realisation hit. He couldn't scream, couldn't alert his dad or brother. His eyes darted, the only part of him that could move. To his horror, he spots three figures. One stood out. It was like nothing you'd expect from the classic little green men tales. It resembled a gorilla with deep-set eyes, wrinkled features, and a hood. Peter's heart raced, thoughts swirling. Is this death? Am I in the presence of the devil? But just as his fear peaked, there was a small mercy. To his left, two more figures appeared. These ones were different. Golden-hued, tall, humanoid. Their eyes radiated a sense of calm, and telepathic messages flowed from them, assuring Peter of his safety and referencing a prior encounter, saying it would be just like the last time. But before he could process it all, a device reminiscent of optic fibre was directed at his head, and then darkness. When he awoke, thinking it was about 10 to 15 minutes later, he felt as if he'd been thrust back into the world of the living. With his mobility returned, he rushed to the living room seeking his father and brother, but they were out cold. Slaps didn't rouse them immediately, and when his brother finally awoke, he agreed with Peter's time assessment of only a short time sleeping. But that didn't make sense. The late night TV station had signed off, indicating hours had passed by inexplicably. The next day brought more puzzling evidence. In the shower, Peter noticed a wound on his shin, like a fresh bullet hole. But by that evening, it had mystically healed, leaving only a scar. And that wasn't all. The stinging sensation in his head revealed another wound and dried blood. So seeking answers, he visited a doctor, only to be met with laughter. His family too seemed to distance themselves from the topic. There had to be some rational explanation, and the event was quickly put behind them. Now let's move forward in time. It's 1992 again in Sydney. So picture this. It's Valentine's Day, and Peter and his fiancée Vivian, they're just relaxing in the car, talking about whatever, when suddenly, out of nowhere, they spot a massive white ball of light in the sky, darting around. It heads off to the Southern Cross constellation, does this bizarre dumbbell pattern, and then it shoots straight up and disappears. They're looking at each other like, did you just see that? And even used some roll-up cardboard as a do-it-yourself telescope. Can you imagine? Fast forward 6 months. Our man Peter wakes up one day, feeling really sick, like so sick he's throwing up when he's driving his wife to the train station. But on that return trip, he notices the closer he gets to home, the better he feels. That's a little weird, right? So he crashes in bed, and this is where it gets real wild. He feels something jump up onto the bed, thinks it's a pet, but plot twist, he has no pets. Opening his eyes, he's confronted by something completely unexpected. There's this blonde, naked woman sitting on him. And get this, my friends, she looks human, almost Nordic in appearance, but her face, it's all elongated, described as kind of like Cher, who was a famous singer at the time, with striking blonde hair, and her seemingly human body was described by Peter as having the most perfect breasts. But as if all this wasn't strange enough, Peter soon realises it's a throuple, as there's this Asian-looking female next to her, reaffirming Peter's later recollection. This was not some sort of sexual delusion, as he did not have a penchant for Asian women.
May love you long.
Although their appearances were different, both had eyes that were blue and almond-shaped, radiating an intelligence that seemed to pierce right through him. So our man Peter's tripping balls. Nothing makes sense. He tries to sit up, and in doing so, he sees a transparent version of himself moving momentarily faster before merging back into one. And then, I can't believe I'm saying this, the blonde tries to smother him with her chest, pulling his head firmly close on 3 occasions, as if to start a motorboat.
What were they like anyway? They look pretty good. Were they real? Are they built for speed or for comfort? What'd you do with them? You play the motorboat? You motorboating son of a bitch. You old sailor, you.
But our non-consensual Peter resists. The situation is no joke, it's getting out of hand. He bites her in defiance, seemingly breaking the skin, and immediately there's this whole non-verbal something's wrong moment between the two women, and then, poof, they're gone. Now, I've heard of sleep paralysis where people feel a weight on their chest, unable to move with hallucinations, but this was no mere hallucination. Following this bite, Peter was left with this burning sensation in his throat and feels like his one-eyed trouser snake has been slashed by razors when he tries to pee. And he finds these freaky hairs down there. One seemingly embedded into the skin, and the other was wrapped around the shaft. Recognising the significance of this tangible link to whatever happened, perhaps something extraterrestrial, Peter decides to store them in a sandwich bag, like any sane person would, right? Now let's fast forward to 1996. Some TV producers get wind of Peter's story, and unlike the many other encounter claims, Peter still has evidence in that sandwich bag. So they send the hair for analysis by CSIRO biochemists, and wow, the results are pretty crazy. One part of the hair is like Scandinavian DNA, and the other part was like Chinese, both together as part of the same hair. How does that even work? Well, whatever the explanation, it must have been pretty interesting, as the CSIRO retained possession of the hairs under contract for the next 10 years. Author Bill Chalker discussed Peter's encounter in his book, Hair of the Alien, exploring the notion of interbreeding between humans and extraterrestrials and the profound psychological impact on Peter. This wasn't an isolated event. Peter's wife Vivian also experienced anomalous phenomena too. Strange phone calls, mysterious visitors, odd happenings. It's as if Peter's experience opened a Pandora's box of high strangeness. Skeptics chimed in, suggesting alternative explanations, but for Peter and the many in the UFO research community, the story held water. The hair sample, the physical bite, the deep emotional and psychological impact. It all pointed to an encounter that was anything but ordinary. Over the years, many people have come forward with stories of alien encounters, abductions, crop circles, implants. There's a vast range of experiences, and yeah, some of them are more believable than others. But the Peter Khoury story stands out, not just because of the oddness, but because of the so-called evidence and the impact on Peter's life. Now, whether you believe in aliens or not, stories like these, they make you wonder, what's out there? What don't we know? Was this an authentic extraterrestrial encounter? A sophisticated hoax? A genuine but misinterpreted experience? In the end, like so many things in the realm of the unknown, it's up to you to decide.